Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. So we're going to discuss DPI and its role today. So the first thing I wanted to ask you is, what role do you think policy and regulation can play in addressing barriers to competition in DFS? In particular, what has been the role of DPI and its various components in enabling greater competition in Pakistan?
Thank you very much. My pleasure. So I'll start with the inherent problem of DFS markets. They are heavily driven by the network effects, data advantages, and economies of scale. Now, that inherent problem, if not solved, leads to that the winner takes it all or most. And then it does not serve the purpose of the client or the market in which the DFS markets are operating, the wider economy. So what you need to do that you require policy and regulation. In Pakistan, I think in order to understand what happened in Pakistan, it would be good that I bit of delve into the history of the how payment pillar evolved as an essential component of the DPI in Pakistan. So early 2000, we started with a switch called One Link, which was owned by 11 major banks, not all. So it's important information that some were left out, and then it was housed in a separate entity, but the primary objective was revenue. The banks started connecting to it, but One Link mostly looked at how it can make revenue. Then comes a regulatory action around, I think, 2012 of the Competition Commission of Pakistan, which would be important for you to know. And the primary ground on which the regulatory action was taken by the CCP was that there was flat pricing for all the participants in the One Link. Now, what that meant was that it could be interpreted that for some it was not economically beneficial, and some who have economies of scale, for them it's better. So did not serve the purpose of financial inclusion. Second, in the governance of that payment switch, only the shareholder banks were represented. The case is, I think, still subject to certain levels. What it did is that it brought into the consciousness of the financial system in the country that the kind of payment system that you require may be different in future. So alongside, there are some other PSP licenses which were given by the central bank. However, they did face a problem because commercial banks did not really fully connect them or facilitate them in order to become credible payment rails in parallel. So this entire history led to a realization that you need a modern payment system in the country which can become an interoperable switch for the entire financial ecosystem. Then comes Raast. Raast is our payment system, which was set up by Karandaaz Pakistan, the organization that I represent. It was founded by the Gates Foundation. It's based on the level 1 principles, which essentially, just for I think everybody's knowledge, mean that it has to be interoperable, it has to be instant, the governance has to be inclusive, then there are shared capacities around fraud, and the most important thing is that it is to be based on cost recovery model. So it's not really a profit center for the participants. So Raast was set up. Now, how it is serving the country, and as a payment pillar, what it has done for the DPI in Pakistan. I think there are several things that we have seen over the years, and I'll just very briefly touch on them. First, that it is interoperable. There are fintechs or branches banking players which started setting up wallets. The banks were holding the accounts. Now, these wallets were operating as a closed loop system and were not connected to the wider banking system. But Raast connected both accounts and the wallets, and which meant that the entire financial ecosystem became interoperable through the Raast. The second is that the institution is as such based in the Central Bank of Pakistan, so its governance is more inclusive, and Central Bank has taken care of that particular aspect, that important constituencies are represented on the board. The fourth important thing is that, as I earlier mentioned, that the level 1 principles are followed for Raast. So it means that as of now, we have a zero cost pricing. which means that nobody is kind of excluded from the system, and which has given really a drive to acquisition of the agents. I'll come to the numbers later, but that's an important thing, that we have moved away from a fee-based system on which the transactions are charged to another system where Raast is seen more as a public utility, and that is how it is positioned by the central bank. So that's an important distinction. The fifth thing is that the government of Pakistan, which was earlier operating through the banks and through the one link or other payment rails, has started using Raast as the primary payment rail, which means that it would be able to reach a wider number of participants, and the public funds or public business is expected to end up with a service-oriented financial service providers instead of just a few number of players. Another technical detail that Raast is based on ISO 20022. What it does is that it allows the contextual information to flow, and which means that it can be used for credit, analytics, and any other value-added services that the financial participants want to provide to their customers. And that enhances obviously the competition. Last item I would mention is that there is an international dimension to it. So the future of payments globally is hub-to-hub payments and not based on the correspondent banking arrangements. So Raast as a hub, local hub, will now be connected with Buna, which is another payment hub based in the Arab Monetary Fund. And that would allow more competition when it comes to service in the local jurisdictions, instead of large banks or large financial sector players remitting or facilitating remittances through the correspondent banking arrangements only.
That was really, really interesting. Thank you. What insights can you share from your work in Pakistan on this theme? I know Karandaaz has done a little bit in this space.
So I'll divide that insights into three headings. One is the implementation experience. Second is that the shifts that we are witnessing. And the third are the risks. So implementation experience, if you see that there are four elements. First, that a neutral actor was required in the local market, such as Karandaaz, in the formative phase, which could act as a glue and could bring in a technical solution which is accepted by all. And since we were grant funded, so we did not have any commercial interest, and we were more accepted as a neutral actor who was solving a problem. Second, the central bank, we had a partnership with obviously the central bank, and the switch is housed in the central bank. So the central bank's acceptance of this as a public good and central bank's role in the market as a regulator gave legitimacy and credibility to this solution, which is quite interesting and important. The third is there is a very high-level Prime Minister's Steering Committee, which Karandaaz is the secretariat, which has fixed targets on adoption in the private sector as well as for the government to person and person to government payments, and for some other foundational things, for example, the Raast board to be activated, policies to be made, etc. Which means that there is an executive push which exists behind this entire drive. The fourth and important thing is that Raast is not being developed as in just an independent technical solution, but it is backed by a regulatory stack too. So the branches banking regulation already existed. The digital banking regulations have come. And then the merchant acquisition framework has also been introduced. So there is a whole regulatory stack which is emerging. Alongside, in Pakistan, a Pakistan Digital Authority has been set up. So the state sees payment as an essential pillar of the DPI or the Pakistan stack, which would eventually emerge and serve the citizens. Now I come to the second part, that the shifts that we are witnessing in Pakistan. As I earlier mentioned, the ecosystem no more sees payment rails as a source of profit. It sees that as a public good, and the commercial players are more looking at it as a means of offering shared services and acquiring the client base, instead of just focusing on what money they could make from the payments. And that did not serve competition nor the financial inclusion previously. The second is, as I also referred to in the previous question, the government sees Raast not only as payment rails, they see that it allows them to track the payments for the audit purposes. It brings convenience to the lives of the people. The third, it increases competition. And fourth, if you have a futuristic vision, DPI vision, it's an essential constituent of that, which is a shift that we have seen across the government now. Another aspect, so as a result, as I mentioned, that then the commercial players are acquiring agents. And in the last less than 1 year, actually, we have seen that the number of active agents has gone 3x from around 500,000 to over 1.5 million active merchants now, which is quite a decent number. I think top risks, I would say that obviously the implementation drive is going on. Raast as an institution still needs to be institutionalized. The second thing that the acquisition war is going on in the market, but a commercial case for the payment players at least to remain incentivized in that needs to settle somewhere. It's a question I think faced by the several markets, but it needs to settle somewhere. The third risk is that when we are developing Raast, it does not become a bureaucracy. So it becomes an enabler and not a stifler of the innovation. So that is something that we have to ensure. I think the intent is right, but obviously in practice we have to see that all that to happen.
Thank you. Very interesting insights. Finally, I just wanted to ask you, are there any lessons or good practices from Pakistan that you think could be relevant for other countries who might be thinking about implementing something similar or be further down the line, for example?
Good question, Eleanor. I think, we also had lots of learning in the process. So internally, Karandaaz is also a learning organization. So we said that why not if we look back and we have to start it again, how would we like to do that? And we thought that it would have been much easier and more structured if we could have a diagnostic toolkit, say. What it does is that you enter into the market and there are several aspects that you have already identified and you make an assessment, and then based on that assessment, you prepare a roadmap. So what we internally did that we prepared a toolkit called Tashkhis, which is an Urdu word for diagnostics. And in that, we've come up with an assessment tool which has 22 parameters spread across 3 categories: operational readiness, technical readiness, and the financial landscape assessment. And then it gives a score of each parameter to that jurisdiction. And what it does is that in the end, it gives you a roadmap. Every jurisdiction will have its own journey. Where do you exist right now? But what is the ideal state that you want to achieve when it comes to a interoperable, inclusive payment system in the country, which is integrated with as part of a DPI framework or the country stack? So that's one learning which we had. In terms of the specifics, what is required or the success factors, if you ask me, I think any jurisdiction which wants to try that has to have an executive push. The politician needs to understand that. Technical solutions are always easier. You can hire consultants, you can hire vendors, they can do stuff. But when it requires, if you want adoption, the politician needs to understand why it serves the interest of people, that it brings convenience to common man, that it is futuristic, it is low friction transaction costs, and the audit trail would be clear. So I think it needs to be sold to politicians, and which gives the executive push. The second part is that it should be seen as a part of package, as I mentioned, as part of a futuristic DPF framework. The third is that voluntary coordination has its limits. So the incumbents will have some sort of resistance. So you need to have a plan in mind on how to take them along and open up the market for everyone, and in order to make them cooperate through carrot or maybe regulatory stick, etc. So that has to be kept in mind.
Very interesting. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Eleanor.